Tsavo Reserve, early morning. A lion lies motionless in the tall, dry grasses, its body stained with dark, drying blood that clings to matted fur. Ranger Samuel Okello spots the animal from a distance, immediately noting the severity of its condition. The flank is torn, a jagged laceration running deep along the ribs, exposing raw tissue beneath. The lion's breathing is shallow and irregular, each exhale carrying a soft, strained moan that seems almost a plea. Samuel pauses, keeping a careful distance, aware that even a wounded lion can react unpredictably if it feels threatened. "It's okay. We'll help you," he murmurs in a calm, measured tone, letting the words hang in the quiet morning air. If the lion panics and bolts, the wound could worsen, or it could collapse entirely before help arrives. The stakes are immediate and clear. Life hangs by the fragile thread of careful observation and precise intervention. Samuel begins a slow, methodical approach, noting every subtle movement of the lion's body. Its ears flick with each distant sound, the tail twitches occasionally, and the eyes half lift, watching him warily. The lion does not roar. It does not growl aggressively. Instead, it is tense, wary, and clearly in pain. The first assessment is purely observational. The depth of the gash, signs of blood loss, the rate of respiration, and the lion's ability to lift its head or shift its limbs. Samuel signals his team via radio, instructing them to move quietly and form a perimeter at a safe distance. The surrounding savannah is wide and open, dotted with thorned acacia trees and scattered shrubs, but even in the openness, the animal's vulnerability is exposed. Any sudden approach could provoke panic or defensive behavior, which might worsen the injuries. The air is dry, carrying the scent of dust, earth, and blood. A faint breeze stirs the tall grasses which whisper against one another, masking small, subtle sounds of movement. Vultures circle lazily overhead, sensing the injury but keeping their distance, hesitant to draw attention. Samuel notes the environmental factors carefully. The rising sun will increase the temperature quickly, which could accelerate blood loss and stress for the animal. He also considers predators or other lions that may appear, drawn by the scent of blood. The lion's survival depends not only on immediate medical attention but also on careful navigation of its surroundings until the team can safely intervene. Samuel moves slowly, deliberately, crouching low to reduce his profile. Every micro-movement is deliberate. He watches for flinches, minor twitches, or eye movements that indicate discomfort or alertness. The lion shifts slightly, muscles tightening under the coat-stained red, before relaxing again. Samuel records its vital signs as best he can: shallow, irregular breaths, occasional low groans, and slight tremors through its limbs. He estimates the blood loss, noting the risk of hypovolemic shock. Infection is an immediate concern given the open wound. The decision becomes urgent. Sedation may be necessary to allow treatment and transport, but the dosage must be precise, as oversedation could be fatal, and undersedation could provoke a dangerous reaction. Nearby, the savannah stretches wide and open, dotted with scattered bushes and small termite mounds. The golden light of early morning begins to filter across the landscape, highlighting the contrast of the lion's matted, blood-streaked fur against the dry grasses. Samuel takes a deep breath, mentally walking through the steps needed to stabilize the animal. First, observation, measuring the wound, noting responsiveness, and checking for additional injuries. Second, perimeter, keeping other wildlife and human team members at a safe distance to avoid stress. Third, preparation, sedatives, ropes, stretchers, and first aid supplies ready for immediate use. Every step is deliberate, slow, and precise because even a minor miscalculation could tip the scales toward death. The lion shifts again, a soft moan escaping as it lifts its head slightly. Its eyes meet Samuel's, wary but not aggressive. Samuel interprets the gaze as a tentative acknowledgement rather than trust. The animal is too weak and too cautious to assert dominance. He murmurs again, "You're not alone." Soft words meant to calm both the animal and the surrounding team. The lion flinches at the rustling grass, reminding the team that any sudden movements from humans or the environment could provoke a defensive response. Samuel signals the team to approach in slow, controlled increments, each step measured. The goal is clear: minimize stress, stabilize the animal, and prepare for intervention. Samuel inspects the wound visually, noting jagged edges, dried and fresh blood, and signs of trauma that could suggest a fight with another lion or a snare trap. He carefully examines the lion's head, limbs, and chest for additional injuries, all while maintaining a safe distance. The lion trembles slightly with each movement, muscles taut beneath its blood-streaked coat, its tail flicks in measured gestures, ears twitch toward any sound, and the occasional low moan punctuates the silence. Each sign is carefully noted. Hypovolemic shock is a real threat, and untreated infection could set in quickly. Samuel evaluates the likelihood of survival without immediate sedation and transport. As the backup team arrives, Samuel coordinates movements quietly. 2 rangers position themselves downwind, maintaining visual contact without startling the animal. Another prepares sedation darts and medical equipment. The lion flinches slightly but does not attempt to flee. Its body is tense, every muscle ready to react, yet exhaustion is evident in shallow breathing and the occasional tremor. Samuel's calculations are precise. Any sudden stress could push the lion into collapse or cause it to worsen the wound by thrashing. The perimeter is maintained, the lion monitored, and every movement measured. Survival depends on careful, deliberate human action in these first crucial minutes. The morning sun rises higher, casting sharp light across the savannah and highlighting the deep red of the wound against golden grasses. Samuel remains beside the lion, quietly assessing vitals, breathing, and subtle movements. The lion shifts, lifts its head slightly, and the eyes briefly focus on him again, cautious but not hostile. This fragile moment of acknowledgement suggests that intervention is possible, but trust is tenuous. Every breath, every twitch, every measured step is a small victory toward life. If misjudged, the animal will not survive. If the team proceeds carefully, there is hope. Samuel repeats softly, "You're not alone," a reminder of the delicate balance between life and death that hangs over the savannah in the early light. The lion remains under the sparse shade, its body tense and movements cautious as Samuel Okello continues to observe from a measured distance. Its flank, still raw from the previous injury, shows signs of slow-drying blood along the torn muscle, and each shallow breath carries a soft, uneven exhalation, evidence of both pain and exhaustion. Samuel keeps his posture low and deliberate, allowing the lion to adjust without feeling cornered. Its eyes flick toward him occasionally, wary and alert, yet there is no aggressive display. The subtle shift in its gaze, the half-lift of the head, and the brief relaxation of its shoulders are all signals that the lion is beginning to register his presence without immediate alarm. Samuel murmurs softly, "It's okay. We're here." Words steady and quiet, serving as reassurance rather than command. Every movement, every decision, is guided by observation. One wrong step could provoke panic, worsen the wound, or force the lion into flight before treatment is possible. Samuel begins a systematic assessment of the lion's condition. He notes the irregular rise and fall of the chest, the tremors in the limbs, and the tension along the spine. He watches the tail flick slightly with each minor adjustment of the body, and he observes the ears, swiveling toward sounds carried by the morning wind. The animal flinches at distant rustling but returns its gaze to him, suggesting a tentative acknowledgement of his presence. The team maintains a cautious perimeter, keeping distance while monitoring the animal closely. The lion's survival depends on careful, deliberate human action. If any step is rushed or misjudged, the consequences could be fatal. The savanna stretches outward, open and sparse, dotted with scattered acacia and dry grasses. The morning sun filters through thin clouds, warming the air in the lion's matted coat. Dust hangs lightly in the breeze, brushing across both human and animal as Samuel considers each environmental factor. Vultures circle in the distance, their presence a quiet reminder of mortality, yet they do not approach, waiting instead for weakness to manifest. The balance of observation, patience, and intervention is critical. The lion is vulnerable and needs steady, unhurried care to survive. Every micro-movement, from the slight head tilt to the subtle shift of a paw, carries meaning. Samuel records each one, assessing readiness for closer intervention, while remaining vigilant for any sudden change in behavior. Slowly, Samuel moves a step closer, monitoring the lion's reaction. Its eyes follow him steadily, muscles tensing in preparation for any threat, yet the flinches are minor, the growls minimal. He assesses the wound again, noting the depth of the gash along the side, the edges beginning to darken with dried blood, and the possibility of infection setting in. The lion shifts slightly, ears twitching, tail flicking, as though weighing whether to tolerate his presence. Samuel pauses, taking note of every subtle sign. These micro-reactions are crucial indicators of whether the animal can safely endure the next steps. The slightest misjudgment could result in collapse, uncontrolled bleeding, or exacerbation of the injury. The team watches quietly from a distance, prepared for any escalation. Samuel's movements are measured, deliberate, and slow, designed to maintain the lion's fragile trust. He kneels low, leaving space, speaking in soft murmurs to reassure rather than command. Each breath and motion of the lion is documented mentally. Shallow respiration, low groans, tremors, eye focus, and ear orientation all contribute to understanding its readiness for closer care. The lion's initial flinches become less pronounced, and the body relaxes incrementally. This small sign of tolerance is significant. It indicates that the animal is beginning to accept Samuel's presence as non-threatening. The trust is tenuous and must be handled with care. If broken, it could endanger both life and the potential for treatment. Samuel begins a more detailed assessment, observing subtle changes in muscle tension and posture. The lion shifts slightly forward, lifting its head more fully, allowing a longer focus on him. Its breathing remains shallow but steady, signaling resilience despite exhaustion and injury. Samuel examines the extent of swelling along the wound edges and notes the jagged tissue, preparing mentally for the treatment steps that will be required. Infection, internal trauma, and hypovolemic shock remain real threats. Every movement, every approach is dictated by the animal's responses. Patience is paramount. Forcing action before the lion is ready could trigger panic, worsening injury or flight. Over the next several minutes, the lion demonstrates further signs of tentative trust. It allows Samuel to move a little closer, tracking his movements with steady eyes rather than panicked flinches. The tail, once sharply flicking, now rests in occasional measured sweeps along the dusty ground. The lion's ears, though still alert, begin to settle slightly against the skull. Its breathing, though uneven, carries fewer audible groans, a subtle indication of momentary comfort in Samuel's presence. These incremental changes provide essential information for planning sedation or treatment. If misread, however, the risk remains high. Premature intervention could provoke sudden reactions, endangering both the lion and the humans nearby. Samuel signals the team to prepare medical equipment carefully, but he does not allow an immediate approach. The lion remains under observation, and each small response, shift in weight, adjustment of posture, tracking of movement, is a critical measure of readiness. The savannah is quiet, punctuated only by distant bird calls and the gentle rustle of dry grasses in the morning breeze. Sunlight warms the animal's fur, highlighting the streaked reds along the flank. Samuel uses this quiet environment to his advantage, maintaining presence while encouraging acceptance of human proximity. The delicate balance of action and restraint is maintained. Life and survival hang on careful observation and patient decision-making. The lion shifts once more, head lifting fully, eyes maintaining steady contact, and tail resting lightly along the ground. Samuel moves incrementally closer, checking for subtle signs of stress or readiness. The low growls are minimal. Occasional tremors persist, yet the body shows signs of measured relaxation. Samuel murmurs softly, "You're almost there," acknowledging the small but critical progress in trust and cooperation. The lion flinches less with each motion, tracking movements calmly, demonstrating that the bond, while fragile, is forming sufficiently to allow for treatment intervention. Every observation is meticulously recorded. Subtle body movements, vocalizations, breathing rate, ear orientation, and eye focus provide essential data for assessing readiness. The team remains in place, maintaining distance while monitoring. If trust falters, the lion may panic, risking exacerbation of the injury or collapse from shock. If handled carefully, however, the animal will allow closer intervention, making treatment and stabilization possible. The quiet exchange of space, patience, and acknowledgement of pain creates a fragile but real connection, allowing Samuel to prepare for the next decisive action. By mid-morning, the lion demonstrates the first clear signs of tolerating closer human presence. Its breathing steadies slightly, tremors lessen, and posture relaxes incrementally. The tail flicks less sharply, ears remain alert but less rigid, and the gaze towards Samuel is sustained longer. Each incremental sign of trust represents progress in the fragile negotiation of survival. Samuel prepares mentally for closer intervention, carefully weighing risks and planning next steps. The stakes remain high. Any misstep could be fatal, yet the lion's tentative trust opens the door to treatment, stabilization, and the possibility of survival. The lion shifts slightly, attempting to lift its head, muscles trembling beneath the matted, blood-streaked fur. Samuel Okello kneels a safe distance away, observing every subtle movement, every flinch, aware that even small sudden gestures could worsen the injuries. The wound along the flank is larger than first estimated, jagged and deep, with edges darkening where blood has begun to clot. Samuel signals his team to approach carefully, keeping their movements slow and deliberate. The lion's breathing is shallow but steady, interrupted by occasional low groans that suggest pain rather than aggression. "It's okay," Samuel murmurs softly, letting the words fill the space between them without startling the animal. If intervention is delayed, the lion risks hypovolemic shock or infection, making every decision critical. The team moves cautiously, ropes and medical supplies ready, while Samuel begins a detailed visual examination. The lion flinches at each motion, muscles tensing, yet does not attempt to flee. Its eyes track the movements with alert, wary focus, while subtle tremors run through the limbs and shoulders. Samuel notes swelling around the edges of the wound, discoloration in the surrounding tissue, and uneven breathing patterns. The injury appears to have penetrated deeply, potentially affecting underlying muscle and minor organs. Each observation underscores the urgency. If treated improperly or too late, survival becomes unlikely. The lion shifts again, legs folding under it, tail flicking lightly as it attempts to maintain balance. The golden grasses of the savannah sway in the gentle morning wind, dust and dry debris brushing the fur along its back. Samuel approaches incrementally, hands low and movement slow, assessing the depth of the wound from a safe distance while preparing for sedation. Vultures circle at a distance, their presence a quiet reminder of mortality, but they do not descend, respecting the fragile moment of human-animal interaction. The environment provides no shelter from exposure, leaving the lion vulnerable to heat and predators, reinforcing the need for immediate, careful action. Samuel kneels closer, noting the edges of the laceration curling and the dark, congealed blood clinging to fur. He examines the body systematically, checking limbs, head, and torso for additional trauma. Each subtle response of the lion, a shift in posture, a slight groan, a twitch of the ear, is documented mentally, providing critical data for treatment decisions. The lion's eyes meet Samuel's briefly, wary but not hostile, a fleeting acknowledgement of his presence. This tentative trust allows Samuel to plan the next stage of intervention. If the lion reacts violently or flees, the wound could tear further and blood loss could accelerate dangerously. The team prepares sedation equipment, measuring doses and positioning ropes for controlled restraint. Samuel speaks softly. "You're almost there," as he signals for a careful approach. The lion flinches slightly but does not bolt, muscles tensing as if bracing for pain. The flank shows raw tissue beneath streaks of drying blood, revealing the full depth of the trauma. Swelling and dark bruising indicate internal damage, while the irregular breathing and low moans suggest shock is beginning to set in. Samuel instructs one ranger to monitor vitals while he continues assessing the wound, noting each small sign of distress. The stakes are immediate. Without intervention, the lion could collapse from blood loss or succumb to infection. As the morning sun rises, the light falls across the golden savannah and the lion's blood-streaked coat, accentuating the severity of the injuries. Samuel examines the wound edges closely, recognizing that deeper tissue may require surgical attention to prevent permanent damage. The lion shifts again, head lowering to the ground, tail flicking with minor twitches. Samuel observes how it attempts to stabilize itself, each subtle adjustment of the legs and shoulders revealing pain and exhaustion. The team maintains the perimeter, giving space and preventing additional stress from environmental factors or nearby wildlife. Every movement and decision is weighed against the risk of worsening the injury. Samuel notes additional abrasions along the limbs and minor scrapes on the face, likely from a previous confrontation or entanglement. The lion flinches with each assessment but remains largely still, signaling the fragile trust that has begun to form. Its chest rises unevenly, and tremors continue through the hindquarters, evidence of both shock and fatigue. Samuel carefully records these observations, calculating the timing and method for sedation and wound stabilization. Delay could be fatal, yet premature action could provoke panic, tearing the wound further and increasing the risk of collapse. Each moment carries a precise risk assessment. The team moves incrementally closer under Samuel's guidance, ropes and medical tools ready. The lion's breathing shows a slight improvement, shallow but steady, while the tremors continue in intermittent pulses. The wound appears more severe than initially thought, with jagged edges and potential muscle trauma that may complicate healing. Samuel signals for gentle preparation, keeping movements slow and deliberate. The lion shifts slightly, head lifting for brief seconds, eyes tracking the team, tail flicking lightly, a sign that it tolerates the proximity but remains wary. If managed correctly, treatment can begin safely. If miscalculated, collapse is imminent. Samuel assesses the risk of infection, noting the exposed tissue and the darkening edges of the wound. Immediate cleaning, sedation, and stabilization are essential. He instructs one ranger to monitor vital signs while another prepares first aid supplies. The lion flinches slightly at the rustle of equipment but does not attempt to flee. Its posture is cautious yet compliant enough to allow intervention. The stakes are clear. Failure to act with precision could result in rapid deterioration of health or death, while careful measured actions provide the only path toward survival. As the morning progresses, Samuel and the team finalize preparations for sedation and wound treatment. The lion remains tense but does not resist, allowing assessment of the full extent of injuries. Its body trembles, breathing shallow, eyes wary yet focused, and tail moving in measured flicks. Each observation informs the next steps: the precise angle of sedation, method of restraint, and sequence of wound care. Samuel murmurs quietly, "Almost there," acknowledging both the trust forming and the immediate necessity of action. The lion's survival depends entirely on the combination of careful human intervention, controlled restraint, and timely medical care. The lion shifts slightly, muscles tensing as Samuel Okello signals the team to prepare the sedation. Its flank rises and falls in shallow, uneven breaths, the wound still raw and dark along the edges. Samuel moves deliberately, every motion slow and controlled, aware that sudden gestures could provoke panic. The dart is readied carefully, the dose measured to allow safe sedation without overexposure. The team positions themselves around the lion, ropes in place, ready to assist once the effect begins. "It's okay," Samuel murmurs quietly, keeping his tone calm, allowing the lion to register the presence of humans as non-threatening. If the lion panics before sedation takes hold, the wound could tear further, or the animal could collapse uncontrollably, and survival would hang by a precarious thread. The dart is fired, striking the lion cleanly in the shoulder. Immediately, a shift in muscle tension is visible. The ears flick, the tail twitches, and the head lowers slightly. The lion groans low, each sound strained and uneven. Samuel watches closely, timing the onset of sedation and observing subtle micro-movements that indicate the animal's response. The body begins to relax gradually, but the process is uneven. The lion flinches intermittently, its limbs trembling with residual strength. Every second is critical. If the sedation progresses too slowly, the lion may resist or move, worsening injuries or causing uncontrolled bleeding. As the sedative begins to take effect, the lion's breathing becomes more regular but remains shallow, punctuated by occasional groans. Its head lowers further, but a tremor runs through the shoulders and back, evidence of pain and stress. Samuel adjusts his approach, moving slightly closer while the team maintains the perimeter. The savannah air is dry and warm, the golden grasses swaying lightly in the breeze. Dust brushes against the lion's coat, highlighting streaks of dried blood along its side. Samuel notes these environmental factors carefully, understanding that heat and exposure could accelerate shock or weaken the animal further. The lion's body begins to sink lower into the grass as the sedative takes hold. Its tail flicks occasionally, and the ears remain alert to movement despite diminishing strength. Samuel and the team move incrementally, ropes at the ready, ensuring that any sudden reaction can be safely controlled. The wound along the flank remains exposed, deep and jagged, and minor tremors run through the hindquarters. Samuel speaks softly, guiding the team in measured steps. "Almost there," he murmurs, acknowledging the fine balance between safety, control, and the lion's fragile cooperation. If they proceed too quickly, the animal may thrash. If they wait too long, shock or uncontrolled bleeding could set in. Suddenly, the lion shifts its weight unevenly, groaning sharply as a tremor of pain courses through its body. Muscles tighten, tail flicks sharply, and head lifts momentarily before settling again. Samuel signals for careful stabilization, instructing the team to secure ropes gently. The sedative's onset is uneven, creating a tense window where the lion is not fully immobilized but vulnerable. Its eyes remain partially open, tracking movement around it, reflecting wariness and exhaustion. Samuel observes every micro-movement, the twitch of a paw, slight ear adjustments, shallow groans. Each detail informs the next intervention, ensuring that the wound is not worsened during restraint. The team moves closer, ropes positioned to cradle and limit movement safely. The lion flinches with minor resistance, muscles rippling under the matted fur, but its body gradually succumbs to the sedation. Samuel maintains steady, soft communication, monitoring vitals and micro-reactions, while the team gently adjusts positioning to reduce stress and prevent further injury. The savannah stretches wide, dry grasses brushing lightly against the lion, golden in the sun, while distant birds move cautiously through the air. Environmental factors are considered continuously, as even minor disturbances could provoke a dangerous response. As sedation deepens, the lion's body relaxes more fully. Its breathing remains shallow but consistent, with limbs lying evenly across the grass. Samuel examines the wound again, noting the depth, jagged edges, and discoloration. Minor scrapes along the legs and face are catalogued for later treatment. The risk of hypovolemic shock remains, but with controlled sedation and careful positioning, the team now has a window to clean, stabilize, and dress the injury. Samuel signals for the next step, moving the lion onto a stretcher carefully for more intensive treatment. Every motion is slow and deliberate, each team member aware that the lion is only partially subdued, and improper handling could provoke sudden thrashing. The lion shifts one final time, a faint groan escaping as the flank bears slight pressure. Samuel instructs the team to stabilize gently while maintaining calm proximity. Tail flicks and ear adjustments are noted, the eyes tracking without aggressive intent. The sedative is taking full effect, but the animal is not completely immobilized. Every movement is calculated to preserve life and minimize pain. The team works in unison, ropes guiding movement, hands soft on fur, ensuring the wound remains protected from stress or tearing. The balance between human control and animal trust is delicate. Success depends entirely on steady, measured actions. Finally, the lion succumbs fully to sedation, its body lying still but breathing shallowly and steadily. Samuel and the team complete initial stabilization, positioning the limbs carefully, checking the wound for further bleeding, and preparing to transport the animal for full medical treatment. Its eyes close briefly, a sign of unconsciousness, while the tail rests gently against the ground. The savanna air carries the warm, dry scent of dust and vegetation, the soft rustle of grasses surrounding the subdued form. Samuel takes a deep breath, acknowledging the tense struggle that has just passed. The immediate danger has eased, but the lion's survival still depends on prompt, careful treatment. The lion lies still on the stretcher, sedated but breathing shallowly and evenly. As Samuel Okello signals for careful movement, every team member mirrors his deliberate pace, ensuring that each shift of weight does not jostle the wound or strain the muscles along the jagged flank. The savanna stretches outward, golden grasses brushing lightly against the lion's fur as the sun climbs higher, warming the air and carrying faint scents of dust, dry leaves, and distant wildlife. Samuel monitors the chest rise and fall, watching for subtle tremors and maintaining awareness of every detail. If pressure or haste disrupts the fragile balance, the lion could slip into shock. The journey to the rehabilitation area will take time, and every step must be measured, every decision deliberate, to safeguard the animal's survival. As the team begins the slow walk toward the rehabilitation enclosure, the lion shifts slightly on the stretcher, a small groan escaping as muscles adjust. Its ears flick in response to distant calls, tail twitching lightly, signaling residual awareness even under sedation. Samuel observes these movements closely, adjusting positioning to reduce strain, keeping voices low and motions minimal. Dust rises gently with each step, clinging to fur and stirring in the warm morning light. The environment is quiet except for the subtle rhythm of human steps and the soft breathing of the lion. Samuel notes every flinch and tremor, aware that even minor shifts could exacerbate injuries or provoke unexpected responses. Trust remains tenuous but present. If respected, it will allow the lion to endure the journey safely. The stretcher passes over uneven terrain. the dry soil giving slightly underweight, creating a gentle rocking motion that Samuel compensates for with slow, deliberate adjustments. The lion's chest rises unevenly at times, groaning softly but frequently, signaling discomfort that must be managed without causing stress. Samuel directs one ranger to monitor the limbs and tail, ensuring the slightest movement does not strain the deep wound along the flank. The warm air carries a faint scent of wildflowers and distant water, a quiet reminder that life continues around the isolated struggle. Each careful step carries the weight of urgency. Delay or miscalculation could trigger internal complications or worsen the existing trauma. Halfway to the rehabilitation area, the lion shifts its head slightly, ears rotating to capture the sound of distant birds and rustling grasses. Its eyes remain partially closed, but subtle flickers indicate awareness of surrounding motion. Samuel kneels briefly, murmuring softly, "Almost there," as he guides the stretcher over a rough patch of ground. The wound along the side remains jagged, with edges dark with congealed blood, while minor scrapes along the legs and face suggest previous scuffles or accidental abrasions. The sedation allows for manageable calm, but the team knows that the lion's responses are fragile. If frightened or overstimulated, it could thrash, risking further injury or collapse. Every movement is calculated to maintain equilibrium between safety, care, and minimal stress. As the rehabilitation enclosure comes into view, a sense of tentative hope spreads through the team. Samuel signals the team to slow, every step taken deliberately, letting the lion adjust to the changing surroundings. The grass transitions to softer soil, and distant trees offer partial shade, a subtle comfort in the dry savannah heat. The lion's breathing remains shallow but steady, tail flicking occasionally, a sign of residual alertness and mild stress. Samuel notes the tension along the shoulders and back, adjusting rope placement to allow even weight distribution and minimize pressure on the deep wound. If mismanaged, these few meters could undo hours of careful stabilization. If handled correctly, they mark the first step toward recovery. Inside the rehabilitation area, the team gently lowers the stretcher onto a prepared soft bed of straw and cloth. The lion's body settles with a faint groan, limbs relaxing slightly as weight is distributed evenly. Samuel kneels at a measured distance, observing subtle shifts in breathing, chest rise, and minor tremors through the flanks and limbs. The wound is cleaned carefully with saline solution, and the edges are examined for infection and tissue damage. The team records each observation meticulously: swelling, coloration, depth of tissue damage, and responsiveness. The animal flinches occasionally but does not resist, a testament to the fragile trust maintained since the initial encounter. Every detail matters. Without careful attention, complications could arise overnight. The sun continues to rise, casting a warm glow over the enclosure, and the lion begins to show the first subtle signs of comfort. Eyes close more fully, ears settle, and the tail rests against the ground, indicating reduced tension. Samuel administers light pain relief and applies sterile dressings, his movements deliberate and calm. The savannah air drifts through the enclosure, carrying the subtle sounds of distant wildlife and wind moving through trees, a quiet backdrop to the lion's slow adjustment. Its body trembles less, breathing evens, and the overall posture suggests a tentative acceptance of the new environment. Every action, observation, and small adjustment is a step toward survival. The lion's life depends on both careful care and patient observation. By late morning, the lion has settled further, lying with limbs comfortably extended, eyes closed, and breathing slow and measured. Samuel steps back slightly, hands resting lightly at his sides, observing the fragile balance between sedation, injury management, and environmental calm. The team removes ropes used for stabilization, leaving the lion free to shift slightly without risk. The once tense, blood-streaked animal now lies in a soft bed of straw, edges of the wound cleaned and stabilized, flanks monitored for internal stress, and limbs arranged to reduce pressure on sore muscles. Tentative trust remains, a quiet bond that allows for care without aggression or panic. As the day progresses, the rehabilitation process begins in earnest. The lion rests under careful observation, the team noting changes in posture, responsiveness, and breathing. Gradual improvement in limb control, subtle shifts in head position, and decreased tremors signal resilience. Samuel maintains a calm presence, allowing the animal to adjust at its own pace, while preparing for the next stage: hydration, nourishment, and gentle exercises to rebuild strength. The physical and emotional tension from the previous hours gives way to cautious optimism. Survival is no longer an immediate crisis alone. It now includes the slow, careful process of healing and rebuilding strength. The lion stretches slightly, muscles trembling but more controlled than before, as Samuel Okello kneels nearby, observing the subtle changes in posture and breathing. Days of careful monitoring have passed since the initial stabilization, and each small adjustment now signals incremental recovery. The wound along the flank remains visible, cleaned and dressed meticulously, but the swelling has begun to subside, and the edges show signs of healing. Samuel notes the steadier rise and fall of the chest, the reduction of tremors along the hindquarters, and the occasional gentle flick of the tail that indicates comfort rather than stress. These subtle signs suggest that the lion is regaining strength, and with it, a fragile willingness to allow human presence. The team maintains a cautious approach, aware that any sudden movement or noise could provoke confusion or fear, yet encouraged by the animal's incremental trust. The lion shifts its head, scanning the surrounding rehabilitation area with partially opened eyes. Each glance is tentative but less wary than in previous days. Samuel observes the positioning of the ears, noting that they remain relaxed rather than pinned, a quiet indicator of reduced tension. The forelimbs adjust beneath the body, muscles flexing lightly, signaling both the rebuilding of strength and the gradual return of coordination. Subtle movements of the paws against the soft bedding show the beginnings of controlled weight distribution, a critical step in restoring mobility. The environment is calm, with warm sunlight filtering through sparse foliage, and the team ensures the space remains free of sudden disturbances. Every observation carries significance. The lion's ability to lift its head, shift limbs, and track motion reflects both physical recovery and a slowly deepening trust. As the day progresses, the lion attempts to sit, front legs folding beneath the chest while hind legs push against the soft straw. The motion is hesitant, muscles trembling, yet controlled. Samuel and one ranger kneel nearby, hands ready to intervene if the animal loses balance, but the lion steadies itself. A low, rumbling groan escapes the throat, not of pain, but exertion, a signal that energy is returning. Samuel murmurs softly, steady now, allowing the lion to register calm reassurance without intrusion. The wound edges appear less inflamed, and the sheen of clean, dry fur around the injury contrasts with earlier matted blood, demonstrating healing progress. The team documents every movement carefully, noting improvements in posture, muscle tone, and responsiveness. Each step forward increases the likelihood of full recovery, yet vigilance remains essential. Any overexertion could reopen tissue or stress the healing body. Later, the lion shifts again, attempting a slow, tentative rise to all fours. Tremors ripple through the shoulders and hind legs, but the controlled effort is notable. Samuel observes the weight distribution carefully, ready to provide gentle support if necessary. The lion's tail flicks softly, ears rotating to track movements in the rehabilitation enclosure, responding with mild curiosity rather than fear. Small adjustments of the head and limbs demonstrate regaining balance, and the low groans become less frequent, replaced by controlled exhalations. The environment contributes quietly to recovery. The warmth of sunlight on the golden grasses, the faint rustle of wind through nearby trees, and the soft sounds of distant wildlife provide a stable, non-threatening context for the lion's cautious re-engagement with its surroundings. Throughout the morning, the lion practices shifting from lying to sitting and attempts several short steps within the enclosure, testing muscles weakened by days of inactivity. Samuel moves methodically alongside, offering minimal verbal reassurance and using hands only to provide subtle guidance if balance falters. The subtle signs of physical improvement: stronger limb extension, more coordinated paw placement, steady tail movements, signal recovery beyond the wound itself. The lion is regaining control over its body, rebuilding strength while simultaneously demonstrating a growing tolerance for human presence. These dual signs, physical and behavioral, mark a critical turning point in the rehabilitation process. By late afternoon, the lion stretches fully, limbs extending without tremor, chest rising in a steady rhythm, and head held slightly higher than before. Samuel observes a small but significant gesture. The lion's ears rotate toward him without flattening, and its gaze lingers briefly, acknowledging presence without distress. The wound edges, though still visible, are firm, clean, and free from discharge, indicating effective healing and reduced risk of infection. Each measured movement, the slow lift of a paw, careful repositioning of the body, controlled exhalations, demonstrates improved coordination and confidence. Samuel records observations, noting that every incremental improvement represents hours of careful monitoring, gentle intervention, and patient observation. The sun lowers in the sky, casting long shadows over the rehabilitation enclosure, and the lion lies partially stretched, resting but alert. Its breathing remains steady, its tail flicks occasionally and relaxed, and its muscles display renewed tone. Samuel steps back slightly, allowing space while maintaining observation. Trust has deepened subtly. The lion no longer reacts instantly to movement nearby, permitting careful observation of posture and physical control. The air is warm but dry, carrying faint scents of dust and vegetation, providing a calm environment conducive to continued recovery. Each small gesture, the flick of an ear, controlled breathing, shifting posture, signals that the lion is regaining not only strength but confidence in both body and surroundings. By evening, the lion attempts several more steps. Moving slowly toward a patch of shade within the enclosure, Samuel guides the movement with quiet gestures, ensuring the animal's stability and safety. The wound remains covered and supported, while limbs carry weight without strain. A brief, soft groan accompanies exertion, yet the lion maintains steady progress, balancing fatigue and effort. Subtle eye contact with Samuel occurs repeatedly, a reflection of trust, acknowledgement, and measured comfort with human presence. Each careful, controlled step represents both physical rehabilitation and emotional adaptation, a gradual reestablishment of confidence after trauma. As the day concludes, the lion rests in partial shade, chest rising evenly, tail flicking softly, ears relaxed but attentive. Samuel notes the accumulated progress, steady breathing, strengthened limbs, tentative steps, and the quiet willingness to tolerate human presence without fear. The gradual signs of strength offer a cautious but real promise of full recovery, a bridge from the crisis of injury to the potential for renewed independence. Observation continues, but hope now threads through the enclosure alongside careful monitoring. Survival is no longer only a matter of immediate intervention. It has become a process of rebuilding strength, confidence, and resilience, marked in the lion's deliberate, steady movements. The lion rises cautiously as the team opens the gate to the larger enclosure, muscles taut with both hesitation and renewed strength. Samuel Okello watches intently, hands relaxed at his sides as the animal steps forward, each paw pressing carefully into the soft soil. Its flank bears the clean, healing wound, edges firm and less inflamed than days before. The team maintains a respectful distance, allowing space for the lion to explore without interference, aware that any sudden intrusion could trigger fear or defensive behavior. With each tentative step, the animal tests coordination, balance, and muscle strength. Movements are slow but deliberate, reflecting the cautious reclamation of independence. The risk remains significant. Overexertion or misstep could strain the healing tissue, yet each motion carries promise of regained mobility. The lion pauses, ears swiveling to detect distant sounds, tail flicking lightly as if weighing the environment. Its gaze sweeps across the enclosure, scanning familiar markers of shade, soil, and subtle elevations in terrain. Samuel observes quietly, noting micro-adjustments in posture. A subtle lift of the shoulders, careful paw placement, and measured head tilts that indicate awareness of surroundings without panic. The sunlight warms the golden grasses, bringing out the sheen in the lion's coat, while faint dust rises with each step, mingling with the earthy scent of the enclosure. These environmental cues allow the animal to navigate safely, reinforcing confidence with each measured movement. Every small decision the lion makes, to step forward, shift weight, or pause, is an exercise in rebuilding strength and recalibrating trust in its own body. A gentle breeze moves through the enclosure, ruffling fur and stirring the lion's senses. It crouches slightly, then rises, testing hind leg strength, muscles rippling under the smooth, healing coat. Samuel steps closer, quietly monitoring for signs of fatigue or imbalance. The lion flinches at the brush of grass against its flank but does not retreat, indicating growing comfort with environmental stimuli. The wound remains carefully monitored. The edges are clean, sterile dressings are lightly protected under fur, and no signs of stress or reopening appear. The team notes that every cautious movement now reflects both physical recovery and an emerging confidence in autonomous navigation. The risk of sudden strain is present, but measured observation ensures immediate response if needed. The lion ventures toward a slight incline, pushing against the soil with controlled force. Its body quivers briefly, muscles adjusting to weight-bearing after days of rest. Samuel encourages the team to maintain distance, allowing the animal to practice balance, coordination, and natural gait without interference. Tail flicks indicate focus and tentative curiosity, while ears track distant calls from birds and rustling trees. Each motion is deliberate. Each hesitation is measured, a reflection of both trauma endured and resilience emerging. The lion's breathing remains steady, chest rising evenly, but subtle groans accompany exertion, signaling both effort and cautious acknowledgement of strain. As the lion explores, it pauses beside a shallow patch of shade, lowering its head briefly, eyes scanning the surroundings with increased confidence. Samuel notes the subtle interactions. A paw pressed firmly into the soil, slight shoulder adjustments and tail flicks and twitches signaling balance and attention. The lion's flanks flex smoothly under the healing wound, and minor tremors of exertion have decreased noticeably. Each controlled step represents recovery not only of muscle but of self-assurance, a reclaiming of natural instincts that had been suppressed by injury and restraint. The team documents progress carefully. Paw placement, stride length, posture, and micro-reactions, aware that each measured improvement increases the likelihood of eventual full independence. The sun rises higher, casting a warm, golden hue across the enclosure. The lion begins a slow trot, muscles rippling under coordinated movement, tail held loosely but purposefully. Samuel maintains quiet observation. Hands relaxed, allowing the animal to set pace and distance. Each step demonstrates regained confidence and control, a stark contrast to the initial tentative movements of days prior. The lion pauses briefly, sniffing the air, ears swiveling, then continues, head lifted, body balanced, breathing steady. The subtle rumble of exertion is present but not labored. Controlled movements suggest that physical therapy through natural activity is yielding results. Later, the lion ventures toward the far edge of the enclosure, testing coordination on uneven terrain. The gentle slope challenges balance and strength, but movements remain measured and deliberate. Samuel observes micro-adjustments, shoulder shifts, careful placement of hind paws, and slight curling of claws into soil for traction. The wound remains stable. The fur around it is clean, the edges are firm, and there are no signs of reopening. Tail flicks and ear rotation indicate attention without fear. And soft groans reflect exertion rather than distress. Each deliberate action in this larger space represents a reclaiming of autonomy, a return to behaviors necessary for eventual reintegration into open, wild territory. As evening approaches, the lion rests under a patch of partial shade, chest rising evenly, tail flicking softly. Samuel steps closer, quietly acknowledging the day's progress. Subtle eye contact occurs, brief but significant, a reflection of the growing bond between human and animal. The lion's breathing is steady, muscles relaxed, and movements minimal but controlled, a sign that confidence is returning alongside physical strength. Each small step taken today represents a significant milestone: trust rebuilt, independence tested, and hope reinforced. The immediate risk of injury has decreased, replaced by cautious optimism that full recovery and eventual reintegration are achievable. The lion steps cautiously through the opening gate, muscles coiled yet controlled, moving from the enclosure towards the open savannah. Samuel Okello and his team maintain a careful distance, allowing space for the animal to navigate without interference. Months of careful care, healing, and observation have led to this moment, yet the risk remains present. Unfamiliar terrain, hidden obstacles, and the instinctive uncertainty of a wild return could challenge even a recovering lion. The animal's flank shows fully healed fur, with the edges of the previous wound firm and clean, with no signs of weakness. Each step is deliberate, paws pressing against the soft earth, tail held low but balanced, muscles flexing smoothly as coordination returns in full. The savannah stretches ahead, golden grasses undulating gently with the breeze, punctuated by scattered shrubs and the distant silhouettes of acacia trees. The lion pauses, lifting its head to sniff the air, ears swiveling toward faint rustles and distant calls of other wildlife. Samuel observes quietly, noting subtle gestures of attention and balance, slight shifts of weight from one paw to another, controlled tail flicks, and measured scanning of the surroundings. Confidence grows with each step. The lion no longer hesitates as it moves over uneven terrain, muscles carrying strength regained and instincts awakening with cautious familiarity. The team documents the journey, aware that every movement represents both physical capability and the subtle reassertion of independence. A low, rumbling exhalation escapes the lion, not of distress but of exertion and attention. Its strides lengthen slightly, limbs flexing with the controlled power of a predator relearning its domain. The animal pauses atop a small rise, chest rising evenly, head held high, tail shifting lightly to maintain balance. Samuel murmurs softly, "Almost there," a quiet acknowledgement of the milestone rather than instruction. The lion's eyes scan the horizon, noting distant shadows and the faint flicker of movement among tall grasses. These small observations signal awareness of surroundings and a reestablishment of natural instincts, critical for survival in the wild. The risk of hesitation, misstep, or external disturbance remains, yet the lion's posture and movement reflect regained skill and readiness. As it continues, the lion navigates small depressions and rises in the terrain, muscles adjusting to subtle changes in ground level. Its paws leave light impressions in the soft soil, claws flexing lightly with each step. The team maintains a respectful distance, allowing the animal to demonstrate autonomous movement while observing vital signs and behavioral responses. Subtle tail flicks indicate concentration, while ears pivot toward distant sounds of birds, insects, and grazing herbivores. The lion pauses briefly, crouching slightly, then rises again, showcasing regained strength and controlled balance. The environment itself, golden grasses, warm afternoon sun, scattered shade, supports a safe reintroduction, providing familiar cues for exploration without immediate threat. Samuel notes the careful, deliberate use of the lion's body, shoulder muscles flexing to support weight, hind legs adjusting for balance, and controlled head movements scanning the horizon. The animal pauses beside a shallow depression, paws pressing into firm soil, nostrils flaring slightly to absorb scents carried by the wind. Its breathing remains steady, chest rising in a rhythmic cadence, with faint, controlled groans accompanying movement. Each action demonstrates an understanding of terrain, awareness of potential threats, and cautious confidence in the regained body. The team continues careful observation, ready to intervene only if absolutely necessary, allowing the lion's natural instincts and experience to guide progress. Moments later, the lion moves toward a distant shade tree, muscles rippling with each step, tail moving in small arcs to maintain balance. Eyes scan the surroundings, nostrils lift with subtle inhalations, and ears remain alert yet relaxed, no longer pinned in anxiety. Samuel steps slightly back, giving the animal full autonomy, yet watches for microsigns of fatigue, stress, or imbalance. The lion pauses, lifting its head to observe a distant herd of antelope grazing. Its body remains controlled, movements precise, reflecting both regained strength and cautious engagement with the broader ecosystem. This step marks the reintroduction of instinctive behavior, scanning, assessment, and silent observation, all without human interference. The sun lowers, casting long golden shadows over the grasslands. The lion walks steadily toward a small copse of trees, muscles moving with fluidity and coordination. Subtle signs of self-confidence emerge. Ears flick occasionally, tail swings controlled, and movements exhibit a combination of caution and curiosity. Samuel observes quietly, recognizing that each deliberate stride represents not only physical recovery, but emotional reintegration into the wild. The animal's responses remain deliberate. If it were to misstep or encounter danger, instinct would govern reaction. Yet careful preparation ensures readiness. Trust built between human and lion throughout the rehabilitation process supports both safety and dignity, a bond quietly honored by space and observation. Finally, the lion reaches the shade, pausing to lie partially down, head raised, chest rising in steady rhythm. Its eyes briefly meet Samuel's, acknowledging presence without dependence, a subtle reflection of shared history. The tail moves slowly, relaxed, with muscles flexed gently beneath the fur. The wind sweeps across the savannah, rustling grasses and carrying faint scents of distant wildlife. Samuel steps back completely, observing as the lion shifts, stretches, and settles under the trees. Its posture conveys both rest and alertness, a balance of security and independence. The risk of injury has passed. The lion is now fully capable of navigating its natural environment on its own. The team retreats slowly, leaving the lion to its regained freedom. The animal lifts its head one final time, glances toward the direction of human observers, then turns toward the open plains. Its stride is measured, confident, and independent. The golden light of the setting sun washes over the grasslands, wind brushing across the lion's fur. A distant herd moves quietly across the horizon, birds calling faintly. Samuel remains still, heart quietly carrying the memory of weeks spent building trust, administering care, and witnessing recovery. The lion disappears gradually into the wild, each step a testament to resilience, respect, and the quiet power of compassion.